Childish, audacious, breathtaking act of defiance. Oh yeah, that's what the Trump-Kennedy Center, controlled by Donald Trump, is being accused of in a new filing by Representative Joyce Beatty, the plaintiff in a case before Judge Cooper. Remember Judge Cooper 96 pages ago when he told the Kennedy Center and their trustees that they are, and reminded them that they are fiduciaries, that they have a fiduciary duty of loyalty, they have a duty of prudence, they have to make good decisions in the public's interest, not in Donald Trump's, and they can't put his name on the building. Remember the whole scaffolding and tarp, which is still up over the Kennedy Center issue? It all came to a head because there was a board meeting in the middle of August. The court, of course, knew about the board meeting and said, you know what, do your board meeting, you do you. And if you're going to shut down the Kennedy Center, which is a violation of the organic statute about the Kennedy Center, you better make a good record to show that you were prudent in your decision-making. I don't think the judge is going to like the fact that they made the decision to shut down the Kennedy Center and stop programming for the community based on 2 slides of a slide deck, a PowerPoint consisting of 2 slides. How is that showing prudence? And more importantly, the open, childish act of defiance to try to put his name, Trump's name, back on the Kennedy Center. Now it's going to be even bigger than JFK's own name, the only living memorial to JFK that exists in the D.C. area after his assassination. Now, instead of just being 1 line of text that says the John F. Kennedy Memorial Performing Arts Center, there's now going to be 2 more lines of text, probably bigger, with Donald Trump's name on it, and a plaza renamed after Donald Trump, in direct violation of Judge Cooper's order, which in a way has been affirmed by an appellate court, and of the statute establishing the Kennedy Center, an act of Congress. I'm Michael Popok. Where are you? You're on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. It's an upside-down, topsy-turvy day in America. And to paraphrase Ronald Reagan at the wall, tear down that name, Mr. Trump. Now, Trump, if you can believe it, according to Joyce Beatty, who's the representative from Ohio who brought the case because she was an ex officio member, Board of Trustees, he actually phoned into the August 13th board meeting. Nothing like bearing down and pressuring and putting your big fat thumb on the scale as the board tries to do its fiduciary duties. We should know better. You know who's really running the show for Donald Trump? Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and his wife, Allison Lutnick. When Discovery opens up, I'll give you a path for Discovery. Get all the text messages between Allison Lutnick and Howard Lutnick, since she's on the board. Get all the text messages between Usha Vance and JD Vance. Get all the text messages between Paolo Zempoli, who's on the board, Donald Trump's modeling career buddy, who introduced him to Melania Trump at the Kit Kat Club, and who said the letter should be as big as possible. Get the text messages between Trump and Zempoli. Here's Joyce Beatty talking about the phone call that she was on as a board member and Donald Trump listening in. Play the clip.
The entire meeting, which was about an hour in our meeting time. It was very interesting because we're just revisiting the same thing. This time he wants to put an inscription at the bottom of the John F. Kennedy Memorial name. But my lawyers will file a joint report on this Tuesday in which we'll notify the court about the actions that were taken in the board meeting and the latest development. The government must also already meet the court's order to talk about when the TARP will come down. And so we are going back to court. This is something that the board has brought up again. And of course, you have to remember that the $257 million that was in the bill, government taxpayers' dollars. So again, Donald Trump wants to take credit and use this as a billboard for his name. And we're going to go back to court as much as it takes. We've been victorious on this because it's
Now it brings us to the resolution. Of course, the court was wise to the fact there was going to be an August meeting, and he wanted an immediate status conference within 5 days, or a joint status report within 5 days after that meeting. You want to know what happened at the meeting? Well, here's a resolution that we'll post on Legal AF Substack for you. And here's what it says. Whereas the center has been in dire need of funding and is losing $100 million a year, whereas Donald J. Trump has successfully engaged in raising hundreds of millions of dollars for the center, whereas the center would be in financial ruin without President Trump's unique stature as a world-class developer. Be it resolved first that the center desires to honor the president's contributions with an inscribed recognition on the building just below the name of the center. So they wanted to read, at least in the short term, the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts, restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump. How is that not a violation of the court's order and the statute establishing the memorial, which says there shall be no other names in memorial or otherwise at or around the center? But it gets worse, because then the resolution goes on to say that if they raise $100 million, everything's for sale in Trump world, then he gets a third line of text. Yes, then they'll add endowed by the Trump Kennedy Center Fund. So there'll be one line of text for the memorial and two lines celebrating Donald Trump that was supported by his lackeys. Now, people like Howard Lutnick and Allison Lutnick know better. They've been on boards. They've got companies with boards. They should know their fiduciary duties, especially after Judge Cooper came out and said in his order they can't do it. In fact, Howard Lutnick recently said that he's in charge to make sure that they're in full compliance with the court's order. What lawyers are advising you? Here's Howard Lutnick on that very point.
Given some of the recent legal battles surrounding the Kennedy Center, can you give us any insight into where the president's plans for renovation stand and what we can expect for the center in the near future?
The president wants to take this amazing institution, which was built, long ago, right? And it needs a renovation. Okay. It's got safety issues. It's got air conditioning issues. It's got elevator issues. It's got water issues. It's just got age issues. And the president wants to make the place glorious. I mean, he's not only the commander in chief, he's the builder in chief. He's the greatest builder in the country, and he's the president. And he wants to take this amazing center, right, which should be the most glorious performing arts center in the country, and put it back at that spot. And that's what he's trying to do, and that's what he wants to do. And my guess is I'd always bet on President Trump, because generally he does what he thinks is the right thing to do. And we'll get this through the courts. We'll resolve it. And this center will shine like it's never shined before.
Do you think his name will be able to come back on the branding, or is that
we'll figure out? Well, the way it was, it should be different. Right? But that'll go through the courts, and we'll see what happens. But in the end, the president's going to make this building amazing.
Do you snore? Did somebody hand you a CPAP, and did you quietly stop using it? The mask that never quite seals, the hose tugging at you every time you roll over, and a machine sitting abandoned in a closet. Packing it for a trip and then deciding it's not worth it. Excite OSA works a different way. It treats a root cause instead of managing the noise, and you use it while you are awake. In clinical studies, 90% of patients saw a reduction in snoring. Thanks to today's sponsor, Spring Sleep. Excite OSA is an FDA-cleared prescription-only device for primary snoring and mild obstructive sleep apnea. Go to springsleep.com/legalaf and unlock 20% off with the code LEGALAF. Excite OSA is an FDA-cleared prescription-only device for primary snoring and mild obstructive sleep apnea. Not for everyone. Individual results vary. Risks and benefits at springsleep.com. Let me read to you by the Joint Status Report. Now, a Joint Status Report is when both parties are required to tell their side of the story. It's like two kids running to mom and dad. Mom and dad, in this case, being federal judge Chris Cooper. Let's just take it from the mom's side, shall we, Joyce Beatty? Plaintiff statement, page 5. First, at the August 13th board meeting, defendants voted to add Donald Trump's name back onto the facade and grounds of the Kennedy Center. This latest move is deeply concerning. They knowingly voted to violate their own organic statute and seemed intent on defying the court's decision. They also say that the pretextual justification for the tarp, that tarp is still up on the building, blocking the name. That's done as a pretext in order to avoid returning it to pre-litigation status quo. They also say on page 6 that the defendants are defying this court's decision on renaming. by putting his name back onto the facade. Now, they've said they won't do it any earlier than September 8th. That just means Judge Cooper is going to have to issue a new order blocking the renaming all over again. And holding people in contempt for that facade and that tarp still being up. On page 7, they say on August 13th, plaintiff's counsel contacted the defendant's counsel, who committed in writing that they will not effectuate the facade plaza resolution until August 27th. I've heard that's now been moved to September 8th. This insured plaintiff could inform the court of this astonishing development in this joint status report. Page 9, on the law, the latest renaming resolution is a breathtaking act of defiance, and they later say it is childish. Adding the words restored and renovated by or endowed by before President Trump's name provides no lawful basis to ignore this court's decision and impose Donald Trump's name on a memorial dedicated by Congress exclusively to a different president. Citing to the statute 20 U.S. Code 76 JB1 establishing the Kennedy Center and stating that, act of Congress, no additional memorials or plaques in the nature of memorials shall be designated or installed in the public areas of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And the court underscored that with its own order. And creating a Trump Kennedy Center fundraising arm doesn't give you the right to throw Trump's name next or on top of the Kennedy Center. It is a defiance of the status quo, as they say later in their filing. And then they go for what they really need to get, which is they need the discovery. Discovery in the form of emails and text messages and correspondence. They need to get a hold of that 2-slide deck presented by the Delta Consulting Group, which said, yeah, go ahead and shut down the Kennedy Center for 2 years. We can't do phased renovations so that we can keep it open and keep the programming going to the people as required by Congress. Why can't you? Well, we have a 5-slide deck that says we can't. Well, no, you actually don't. Because when you take away the title pages and the introduction and the biography of the guy who did the analysis, you're left with 2 pages of substance that was given to the board 2 days before. That is not, and it's by definition, not prudent decision-making and in violation of their fiduciary duties. But they want depositions, the Joyce Beatty side. They want emails. They want text messages. They don't want it curated or spoon-fed to them, the documents, by the board who can't be trusted. So this is what I think is going to happen. I think the judge is not going to be happy. I think Judge Cooper is going to call the parties in together. He's going to hold an evidentiary hearing. He's going to grant the request for discovery. He's going to require board members to sit for depositions and turn over their phones and their emails and their texts. He's going to issue a stay to block any name change to the plaza or the facade until he rules. He's going to order that the tarp come down. He's going to let the other side on briefing schedule file their motion for a new preliminary injunction on the new naming resolution so that we have a clear set of pleadings. And then he's going to make a ruling, probably be sometime in late September. And from there, anybody who's on the losing side, and I'm looking at you, Trump, and the Kennedy Center board, you can go run to your local federal appellate court and try to get 2 judges to rule in your favor. If you don't like that ruling, you can try to take it up to the United States Supreme Court, who know how to read, by the way, including the organic statutes set by Congress. And no amount of, the board wants to celebrate the genius of Donald Trump and put his name on there. That is not an excuse to violate a statute. We still operate under separation of powers. The executive branch is to execute the law, not make new law, or not breathe down the neck of his self-selected board of trustees and force them to put his name back on. I mean, this isn't Trump derangement syndrome. This is megalomaniacal narcissism. Why do you have to put your name on everything like some sort of Roman emperor? Why does it have to be in gold? Why do I have to spend money and time and waste valuable taxpayer dollars to restore Washington by ripping down Donald Trump's edifices, names, ballrooms, Kennedy Center, arches, and whatever else his lame brain administration decides that they're going to give him as tribute? I'm fired up. I'm back here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Take a minute, hit that free subscribe button on Legal AF YouTube channel. And if you want to read all these filings, go over to Legal AF Substack, become a paid member, and you can read it in Filings AF. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.